Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies, bringing you another painting tutorial for my Kill Team playlist. This time we're going to be working on the grotesque Gellerpox. These are fantastic miniatures which did hit the shelves about 4 years ago, and now they've finally been re-released as separate miniatures on the Games Workshop website. So if you are looking for these miniatures, they are available on that website. The miniatures themselves can be quite a daunting thing when you first look at them. There's so many different textures and stuff across the board that it can seem a little daunting to get painted. So I'm hopefully going to alleviate any of the fears that anyone might have about picking up and getting these miniatures painted up and getting in some games with Kill Team. So I'm going to show you some quick and easy techniques to achieve a really nice gaming standard. I'm quite happy with how the first one turned out, so I hope you guys are as well. If you like what I do over on the Mediocre Hobbies channel and want to support me and help me grow even further, the best way for you guys to do that is through my Patreon campaign. It's only through support of my Patreon campaign that I can continue to make these awesome videos for you guys and help you guys get through your backlogs. So if you are interested in supporting me on Patreon, there's links to that below where you can see all the different benefits and stuff to becoming a member. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so this is the Gellerpox model that I chose to use for this tutorial. I believe it used to be the ship's chef or cook, who of course has been tainted by the warp and turned into this big hulking monstrosity. I thought he had the best kind of options for different materials, skin, hair, fur, metal, to show you guys and help you guys get across the entire Gellerpox collection of miniatures. So I used Flayed Flesh contrast paint, and I applied this all over the skin of this miniature, avoiding the hair and the cloth that he is wearing. He's got like a little apron around his waist and a shirt which I presume used to cover his stomach before all those mouths exploded out and ate their way through it. So just make sure you get a nice thick coat on this, and I don't mean thick as in, don't blob up all the detail. I mean thick as in don't miss any pieces, or make sure you get into all the nooks and crannies and stuff like this. It is a very heavily detailed model, so it does suit the contrast style very, very well. So with all of the Flayed One Flesh applied, we should be at about this stage. Now we're going to go to Skeleton Horde. I debated with myself what color I would paint all of the cloth, and I just went with the example that was on the website in case you guys wanted to follow along correctly. This used to be an old chef's apron is my guess, so I went Skeleton Horde, and I'm going to do it up as a really dirty white, covered with some blood and stuff at the end. But I really did want to add a splash of color to the miniature because I thought it was going to be lacking color by the end of it, but by the time I got to the end of the miniature I really liked how it was turning out. The burgundy color contrast, and one of the newer contrasts, is used to fill in all of the mouths. That's going to be like the inner detail, like gums and back of the throats, tongues, all those bits and pieces are going to be covered with that new burgundy contrast. Sorry for that horrible angle. It was really hard getting the brush in and around these mouths. But a quick and easy step. There's a couple of mouths on the arm, or the face exploding out of his right arm, and then I put some around his right fist as well, just to darken that down as well. Then he moves on to the new sewer contrast paint, and I use this for all the hair on the miniature. So his big crazy, I don't even know what kind of hairstyle to call it. Looks like he stuck his head out the car window when I was driving down the motorway. But anyway, the sewer color is a really nice, like chocolatey brown color, and it works really well for base coating the hair. And I also did the entire cleaver with that color as well. Plus, there's he's got like a little leather strap around his neck with some bits and pieces on it and stuff like that. So any leather straps you want to do, I use the sewer contrast. Use any brown contrast you like, whatever is your kind of favorite tone. But so far for me, it's looking pretty good like this. Iron hand steel was used for all the metallic parts, so that's really just the chain link fence they used to hold into the deck while he was being a slave or something. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't a willing cook. And then there's a couple of trinkets around his on the bandolier around his neck, and then there's lots of meat hooks and stuff around his front and around the back of him. So make sure you find all those and give them a coat of silver. I'm not going to touch the knife yet. You're maybe wondering why I'm not doing the knife in silver. I'm going to make this cleaver kind of rusty and old looking, and I will show you how I do that now in a second. I promise you it's worth the wait. We then move over to Flayed Flesh Shade, and we were going to cover the entire miniature, every single detail, with Flayed Flesh Shade, just to add a little bit more warmth and a little bit more life into the miniature and help all these different tones blend together. It's a quick and easy step, but it really does help with the overall aesthetic of the miniature. And also I find contrast has a kind of a bad habit of kind of rubbing off, being a soft paint. It's not very strong on the miniature, so I always find a coat of shade helps to kind of lock it in, almost like as if I'd varnished it. So here it is with all of the shade applied. And then here it is with that shade now dry. Ready to start layering up that skin. So I went over to Cadian Fleshtone, and I'm going to use this to slowly layer up all of the skin. I thought about dry brushing it, which you can of course do. If you want to dry brush all the skin, you can just get a small dry brush and quickly go over it. I quite enjoy the layering process. And because the skin is the main focus of this model, someone might argue all the mouths exploding out of his face, his stomach are the main focus, but I think it's the skin. So I wanted to take my time and do kind of a good job on layering up the skin. So this would have taken by far the most amount of time across this entire paint job. Still not that long though, I'd say I spent less than 10 minutes layering up the skin on this miniature. And in the entire kind of Gellerpox collection of miniatures, there's only 4 guys this size. So they're really going to stand out on the tabletop. People are going to be looking at those kind of miniatures. So I think it's worth taking that extra bit of time and spending it on them to making your gang really pop out. And once again, because this miniature is so well detailed with its musculature and its folds of fat and everything, it's really easy to know where the highlights should go. I always love when a model has detail like that and you're not trying to kind of guess where a highlight goes. It's the same reason I always struggle with bald heads. I don't know where to highlight the top. So here it is with one coat of the Cadian Fleshtone. I went back in with a second coat on all the raised parts of the miniature. So as if the light was above, coming down, I just lightened up some of the higher points a little bit more. So his big hulking shoulders and his arms and stuff like that. Just add a little bit more color back into it. As you can see, I'm not going crazy. Next, it was time to go over to Flayed One Flesh, and I'm going to use this to layer up his all the cloth and material that are on this miniature. Once again, taking my time. I started off doing some clean lines, but eventually I moved over to kind of that scratchy look. Not trying to get the smooth, clean lines. I wanted to look like a really old, like ragged, horrid piece of cloth or material. And I don't think if I went for these like straight, smooth lines, like I was highlighting a cape, it would look very well. So, or it would look well, but that's the problem, it would look too well. So I really wanted the kind of grease and old natty stains to really show through. So, yeah, as you can see in instances like this, it just started to become these really rough kind of highlight layers. I wasn't really thinking too much. I was just leaving it nice and thin, so it was a little bit translucent to let that like grimy color show through. And I just built up some tones like this until I was happy with the result of the cloth across the miniature. And I was actually much happier with this result than I thought I was going to be, so I just continued that on across all the fabric until it all kind of matched and blended with itself. Because I was doing quite thin translucent flares, I did go over a couple of bits a little bit more than the rest. Next, move over to Screaming Skull, and we're going to highlight all of the teeth. One of the stages I forgot to record was that I actually went over all of the teeth before this with just a coat of light brown, so I went for Mornfang, just because I'd covered them with the burgundy color. So skull white over the top of them then, just to give you that nice, bright, crazy teeth look. Pink Horror was used to highlight that wash down burgundy and highlight all of the kind of tongues and mouths and all those bits and pieces that are really predominant out of the center of this miniature. The faces on the arm, once again, have the same thing. There's a big tongue hanging out of them, so make sure you don't miss that. Now it's time to move over to that cleaver like I was talking about earlier. So I started by stippling on Rise of Rust all across the brown blade of the hatchet. Not hatchet. Cleaver, thank you. And I just slowly built up layers of orange until it gave you that kind of slight rust effect. Sorry, once I turned around, I decided to once again focus on my glorious knuckles. At least my camera thinks they're glorious, I don't know why. And I just stippled that effect on, and then from there I moved over to Iron Hand Steel and gave the cleaver a light dry brush in the direction of the blade. If you see, I'm just going to kind of catch the sharp edges of it and leave that orange and brown rust in the middle, and that will give you a really nice rusted up cleaver. Still sure touched by the warp, so it's still cut you pretty bad, but still looking kind of meldy and old. From there I moved over to the, I believe, final step, which was Blood for the Blood God. So I applied it, Blood for the Blood God, in two ways. One, I worked on the cleaver. I wanted to give it the appearance as though this thing has been chopping through necks and stuff. So there's a very distinctive kind of splatter pattern straight through the blade, where he's been hacking and chopping up parts of people and stuff. Quite grim, but Gellerpox gotta eat. And then we moved over to the old toothbrush method, which you load up a toothbrush with the Blood for the Blood God, and then you run your fingers through that and make sure that it makes the blood splatter across onto the miniature, and that's basically what I wanted to do. I went from the direction of the cleaver going towards the miniature, because obviously he's hacking with that side and the blood is splashing up all over him. Once again, it's kind of a hard thing to film because obviously my hand is going the way while I'm doing the effect, but you can see the blood splatter start to explode all over him. And this is it once I've applied all the blood cut that I want to. You can see I've got much heavier on the arm holding the cleaver. His other arm doesn't have that much blood on it at all, and that was obviously by design. And with that, we have this really grim, muted, horrible monster that is stomping around the bowels of the Garaghak space hulk, hunting for prey. It is not something you want to turn your flashlight down a corridor and see this thing stomping towards you. So I quite enjoyed it, and I'm very much looking forward to painting the other three of these. Okay guys, and there we have it. One Gellerpox is finished. As you can see, I went for the big and nasty one to do for the video. I thought that would have the most kind of varied textures and stuff to help you guys get through the entire thing, and I think we did a pretty good job of it. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you give it a like. If you have any questions about anything I did in this video, any other video, or any other questions in general, drop in the comments below and I'll get back to each and every one of you guys. Thank you guys so much for sticking around till the very end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.